movement, let's say, of green buildings has done a lot, I have to say, since the last 2 decades, basically. But the progress in, let's say, in addressing it more effectively the climate change has been really not visible, and we really definitely didn't do some effective actions under this perspective.
Hello everyone, I'm Giulia Leghissa, part of the editorial board of Build Up. Build Up is the European portal for energy efficiency in buildings. Today we have the second expert talk with Carlo Battisti, and welcome Carlo. So I will introduce briefly our interviewee. So he's a sustainable innovation consultant and project manager. Since 2009 he has been working with IDM Südtirol of Bolzano as a project manager in the ecosystem construction. In 2017, he works also with EURAC Research as chair and project manager of the Cost Action Restore. Since 2018, he's the executive director for the International Living Future Institute. So, Carlo, during the Klimahouse Congress 2020, we had the opportunity to attend two congresses, in particular Construction 4.0 and Architecture 2020. They exposed the state of the art of these two very broad topics. Yeah. So, Cost Action Restore project aims to implement restorative sustainability for new and existing buildings across Europe with the participation of 42 countries and 150 participants. So, how is Restore contributing to these two key topics of Construction 4.0, digitalization and architecture?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Giulia. I would like to start firstly from the rationale behind the project Cost Restore. Cost Restore is basically an action funded by the European program COST. This is, let's say, the oldest European funding program because it dates back to the 70s. And so the rationale behind our action is the fact that basically what we are really doing in terms of addressing sustainability and with, let's say, the green building movement in the latest 20 years has been unfortunately barely visible. So that's why we need definitely a paradigm shift, meaning to transfer, to shift from let's say, less bad concept to a more good concept, so from let's say, a traditional concept of sustainability to a more restorative, more regenerative one. And this clearly has to be done with the help of all the stakeholders involved, and the opportunity that we have within this project to have all these more than 40 countries involved and all these professionals and practitioners is definitely very important, because we have also the opportunity to compare different, let's say, perspectives from different countries in Europe, plus also some international partners. We are addressing sustainability, first of all, as nowadays something that is clearly important for architects and professionals, because definitely architects and engineers are the key players in this, let's say, building environment, because the way they can really design and envision how to achieve, to create this type of new buildings. So buildings that can be really regenerative, like meaning that they can, for instance, produce more energy that they are consuming from renewable sources, or they are completely managing the water cycle in a natural way, using healthy materials, so forth and so on. So this is really important, and this means that architects have to, let's say, develop a sort of transformation also in their mindset, and they clearly can definitely play a very good role. Education is really important, so that's why, for instance, one of the main tasks the project is addressing. There are these so-called training schools. So we basically organized 4 out of the 5 training schools scheduled for the overall project. And for instance, the third one of this training school was focused on how to put into practice, into digital practice, the concept of sustainability sustainability. So this is also to address to your to the second point of raised from the Congress, basically. So we have nowadays a lot of very good, let's say, professional able to manage the digital tools and the digital skills in order to develop these new, let's say, green buildings. On the other side, it's important they are also aware about the real concept, the real, let's say, regenerative concept of sustainability. In this way, they have the tools. They also have this awareness, so they are able to put, let's say, this new concept of regenerative sustainability into practice. That's why, for instance, this training school was focused on using these digital tools nowadays available on the market in order to put it really into practice, sustainability, to make it real. And this is also, for instance, one of basically the main, let's say, content on one of our output. This is a book we developed, we produced within our action. This is also, for instance, another of the output we are producing within this framework.
So Restore aims to achieve a mindful change in how to approach our built environment. To what extent we are on the right way to also achieve the 2030-2050 targets of the energy efficiency?
I think we all realize that we are really still too far from the, let's say, from the final goal. We know that there were goals from 2020, for 2030. Now we are talking about 2050, because, for instance, the new president of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, aim basically is to create the first continent that's really carbon neutral. This is clearly an ambitious goal. The movement, let's say, of green buildings has done a lot, I have to say, since the last 2 decades, basically. But the progress in addressing it more effectively the climate change, something that was a climate change at the beginning, and now has definitely become climate crisis, climate emergency, something that's really difficult to address. So the progress in addressing this overall problem is really not visible, and so we really definitely didn't do some effective actions under this perspective. Even, let's say, the green building movement is still a niche of the market. So there are a lot of discussion between technicians, between architects, consultants, engineers, but we are still talking in a very, say, small part of the overall market. If we just, for instance, think of the enormous already existing built environment in Europe, with, we can say, something like 70% or maybe more of the buildings that are more than 40, 50 years old, and they are consuming a lot of energy. So that's why we are really very far. So basically the intent from the Restore project is to go beyond this, previous, concept of sustainability, to move towards a vision, a situation in which buildings can really be autonomous or have a sort of net or even positive impact on the environment. And under this perspective, if, for instance, from tomorrow morning we are designing and building all these new buildings or even renovating our existing buildings under this approach, this is something that we think can do something really to address this overall climate emergency topic in a much more effective way. And this implies that all the stakeholders have to be involved. This implies that all the phases, all the steps of the construction process have to be addressed. So that's why, for instance, in this project, we structure our action to 5 different work packages, really starting from the first work package dealing with redefining this new concept of sustainability. And then we pass through how to make the design process restorative, how to manage in a restorative, regenerative way the construction site, the construction and operation and the maintenance of a building. Now we are addressing with the 4th work package, that is, by the way, is coordinated by Eurac Research, how to rethink technologies. So which are the technologies that can be useful or needed for achieving this type of regenerative building. And the final part of the final 5th work package will be focusing and addressing the so-called scale jump. So how we can scale up from the building scale to a district, to a community, to a city scale, this concept. So is it possible to have, for instance, a district that has no environmental impact, or this net or positive in terms of environmental impact? So this is clearly the challenge behind this project, but definitely a paradigm shift is needed. So, and this involves basically all the stakeholders in the process.
Talking about Living Future Institute, so can you explain to us what it is, what's your role in it? So we know it's an assessment methodology for living standards. So you can also, how far are we away from being able to fulfill these very demanding indicators?
Yeah, Julia, let me say it's maybe more than a sustainability standard. It's really a philosophy. So definitely the idea is to transform the communities, to make them, we generally say, culturally rich, socially just, and ecologically regenerative, or restorative, responsive. So it's basically an overall concept, an overall philosophy, an overall framework that is also an advocacy tool and also clearly a certification standard. Yeah, because at the end we need tools to let's say, to verify, to check from a third party if our business, our products, our companies are really compliant with these principles. So that's why it's also possible to certify buildings, certify products, companies, and so forth and so on. So this is basically the framework. The institute is based in Seattle, Washington State, in the northwestern part of the United States. The framework has been developed a dozen years ago for the first time, in its first version. Now we are at the fourth version, Living Building Challenge 4.0. We have also other programs dealing always with the regenerative approach for buildings, products, companies, communities, and so forth and so on. And we have also, for instance, a program for zero carbon buildings, a program for zero energy buildings. These are all compliant, let's say, with the European Directive for Energy Efficiency, already existing, and the overall new goal for the European Commission. We have a transparency label, for instance, like Declare. Declare is a transparency label where manufacturers can display all the ingredients that are included in their product, and also showing that there aren't toxic or harmful substances inside, or maybe if there are, they're also displaying this information. This is coming from a demand that is getting more and more, let's say, developed from the market, because users need transparent information from manufacturers. This information are generally very complex. There's a lot of chemistry behind, and we are, living 90% of our time indoor. So also the quality of our life indoor is definitely important. So which type of products are we are bringing in our project? This is definitely important. So we are definitely working on several programs and tools. So basically with the idea to provide these tools to professionals in order to put into practice this concept of regenerative sustainability. And we opened a couple of years ago our first European office here in Bolzano at NOI Techpark. Previously with this so-called Living Future Europe initiative, and now basically 1 month ago we founded Living Future Europe. This is a non-profit organization, also based here at NOI Techpark, where we are basically, our intent is to coordinate all our, let's say, tasks and activities across Europe, develop Living Building Challenge even further in the European market, basically starting from Bolzano. So this is the intent behind the creation of this new legal entity here.
Would you like to present some of the books that you?
Yes, basically these are the International Living Future Institute has also a publishing company. This is called Ecotone. I have to say I like those books very much. Basically, they are generally dealing with our, let's say, case studies. So this is also interesting for professional designers, architects, and engineers to go more in detail to understand how is this type of building is achievable. For instance, this is the book regarding the Bertie School. It's a primary school in Seattle that's been completely, let's say, designed and built following the Living Building Challenge principles. It is also a sort of demonstrator, physical demonstrator. So it's a place where children are educated for this, let's say, concept of sustainability. They are everyday let's say, touching with their hand all these different, let's say, sustainability features that have been implemented in the school. It is, again, a school that is net positive in terms of energy consumption. They are managing all the water cycle locally. This is another book on Bullitt Center. This is the Bullitt Center. It's considered to be the greenest commercial building in the world. It's based in Seattle. It's basically at the ground floor, there is the headquarters of the International Living Future Institute. At the higher floor, there is the headquarters of the Bullitt Foundation. Maybe, I don't know, we are not familiar with this name, but we know the Earth Day. So the president of the Bullitt Foundation, Dennis Hayes, was the inventor of the Earth Day, so I think already 50 years ago. And again, this is a Living Building Challenge certified building. It's completely disconnected from the municipal water grid, also in terms of sewage treatment of black and gray water. So basically, it's managed and treats all the water locally, so collecting rainwater from the roof, filtering, treating it, cleaning it clearly without using chemicals, and basically our colleagues in Seattle, they are drinking their rainwater daily. So this photovoltaic array on the rooftop combined with the geothermal system, they are capable to provide more than the energy needed each year, and this is completely from renewable sources. And these are clearly the three first books that have been published within the Restore project, and there are other two to come from the remaining two work packages, plus there will be a final book at the end.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
It was very interesting, and yeah, thank you for doing this interview, and it was a pleasure.
Okay, fine, for me too.